There are multiple words to describe an experience one had with a book, but how to talk about a book that surpasses the experience of reading a book and crosses over into sort of a sensual experience? I don't know yet. Firstly, in terms of a plot, there's nothing to talk about here really. Asle, the narrator of The Other Name by Jon Fosse, is an aging painter, a widower, an established enough artist to live from his art. He lives alone in remote Norwegian settlement on the western coast of this country. He is a widower still fighting a deep pain caused by his wife's death. His wife's name was Alice, Asle and Alice. There's another man that Asle describes as his friend living in Bergen, the city Asle visits for errands and where he has his annual exhibition. The name of the other man is Asle, the same name the narrator has. You know, very early in the novel, the present moment is mixed with the past. The novel is narrated mostly as a stream of consciousness, where the present moment battles for Asle's, the narrator's, attention with his memories. From the very beginning, you realize that the scenes Asle describes and sees are those of pictures of the past painted in his mind. This is quite clear from the very beginning, but with Asle, the other name living in Bergen, a situation is a bit more complicated. Initially, I was sure this is one and the same person, another version of the narrator from the past. But then the details of lives of Asle the narrator and Asle the other name started separating significantly. It was like they entered a crossroad and went into totally different directions. My confusion was at its peak when the two of them met, but then slowly it became clearer. The fact that the narrator Asle knew the details of the life of the other name Asle in such a personal, so internalized way made me realize that what Fosse does here is showcasing the two versions of the same person, showcasing a relatively successful life and the life falling into despair, the life descending into depths of nothingness. The other name, the title of the novel itself, reflects on the symbolism of those names. It's not only Asle and the other name Asle and the wife Alice, but there's also the old fisherman named Asleik, living in the same village with whom Asle, the narrator, has the most unusual friendship. Uncomfortable, yet full of understanding, and communicated through rigid and austere exchanges. But all the dialogues in this book are like that. Rigid, austere, repetitive, and perfect. All those names seem to be linking those lives into one. One life lived in different versions. This book seems to be, in a very humble way, asking those big, usually very pompous questions of what makes us who we are, how much individuality there is in our lives, how much authority we have over our own lives and over how we live it. You know, those big questions might make you think this is a grandiose and overbearing book, but nothing can be farther from what this novel is. This book is unassuming and humble, but in the most beautiful way. It's melancholic and sad, but it's also atmospheric and carries this quiet poetry created by its simplicity. Simplicity stripped out of all unnecessary decorations. There are moments when the prose is absolutely gripping. The fragment when Asle, still a child, and his sister, disobedient to their mother, walk farther and farther away from their house towards the treacherous sea and dangerous cliffs, Through those couple of pages, I barely breathed. There were also moments where my attention and ability to comprehend were tested. When the stream of consciousness got so erratic that narrator thoughts were fighting for attention, overshadowing each other, then every few words breaking out again, that I had to read very carefully to separate two events Asla was reminiscing. I believe that the level of faithfulness between Fosse's narration in those moments and the human mind interworkings is unmatched. Maybe with the exception of Lucy Ellmann's Dax Newberry report. There was another writer I often thought about reading the other name, and that's Marilynne Robinson. Scripture references starting from the epigraph opening this novel are omnipresent. Asla is a deeply religious man, one that calls himself a Christian and a Catholic, but his God is not your usual Catholic church God. When asking himself if he believes that God exists, Asla answers no. Obviously, God doesn't exist. God is. And if Asla himself were not, then God wouldn't exist. God in this novel resembles the art Asla is creating. God is in a great silence. It's in the darkness that God lives. And then I say, again and again, inside myself, as I breathe in deeply, Lord, and as I breathe out slowly, Jesus, and as I breathe in deeply, Christ, and as I breathe out slowly, have mercy, and as I breathe in deeply, on me.